Greetings, everyone. It's Trey Jadlow here. I'm here on this, what is this, the 11th day of 2024, starting up a new year here. And I've got a new friend here, Quorac the Bard. I have just met him probably less than an hour ago. Somebody tagged me in another thread, and so I think it was a thread, something about morality or the existence of God or something, and Quorac came in and said, hey, I'd be happy to have a conversation if maybe I want to. And so I asked him, I said, I'd like to. And he said, okay, well, I'm busy right now, or I'm available right now. So we went ahead and just made an event real quick. So welcome, Quorac. It's nice to have you.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I've known you for minutes now. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah, we literally have no interaction whatsoever.
Yeah, someone said, hey, you should debate this guy. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. And then I kind of have these fairly common. I've had these for quite a while. I like to just keep it kind of like a Socratic dialogue, just chit chat about stuff.
Sure.
And I like, when I start, I like to get a little information or background, nothing personal. If you don't feel comfortable giving anything, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But just to get to know you, it'd be nice if there's any information like what you do, or the main thing I really want to get is a little bit of your religious background, or if you had none at all or whatever like that, just to kind of figure out where you're coming from. And then I'll tell you about me. I'll tell you all my personal information as well.
Yeah, it's actually interesting being on this side of the interview, because I do host these kinds of things with theists myself. And I wish there was just like an icebreaker, like, tell us about what you do and, why are we here? So
sure. Yeah.
I was raised Methodist and got started early as a minister as a young kid. And in my 20s became an evangelical minister. I'd say my entire career as a Christian spanned about 30 years, and I've been an atheist for about 10 years. Okay. I became an atheist when after I left the church. Obviously, we can get into that if you want, or we can, whatever the subject, however you want to go with this.
Sure. Now let's see. So we're probably maybe similar in age. So you're always within the Methodist Church then?
As a kid, yeah, but as a teenager and as an adult, I became an evangelical.
So an evangelical, is that like non-denominational or something?
Do you not, have you encountered an evangelical before?
Yeah, from my understanding, evangelical encompasses all of modern Protestantism, which Methodists would fall into that. Evangel just means the good news. They usually focus on the authority of Scripture and on the gospel of justification by faith alone.
I guess you could say it was non-denominational. I mean, to me, it was a cult. It was very based on who you were seeing, how many people you were bringing to church, and that kind of thing.
Now, did you like believe in prophecy and that kind of stuff in that church?
I believe the Bible was literal. And as my faith evolved, I started to, and as I studied the Bible, I started making little exceptions for the literalness of the Bible. Like maybe the universe wasn't made in 7 literal days, that kind of thing.
Okay. But I mean, when the church that you were involved with, did they were they really into healing and people prophesying? I'm thinking of the charismatic movement.
No, it wasn't Protestant. It was just like very hellfire, brimstone preaching. Get asses.
So kind of fundamentalist then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So was it kind of Baptistic then?
Yeah, you could say that. But I mean, we did have full on baptismal fun. Like you were baptized in a giant bathtub, not like sprinkled with water.
Yes. They wouldn't sprinkle, they would dunk it. Yes, it's probably non-denominational Baptist. Most non-denominational evangelical churches are just Baptist, and they just kind of drop the Baptist.
Right. And I'm not trying to be cagey about the name, but it's just the church split, and a lot of preachers kind of scattered and started new, their own things in other states, and it kind of became a big mess.
Yep, that happens a lot. Okay, great. All right, well, I'm 57. I don't know. We might be the same age. You're probably a little younger than me. I'm 57. I've been a Christian for 37 years. I live in the Kansas City area. I became a Christian in an organization called YWAM, or Youth with a Mission. You ever heard of that?
I have not.
Okay, it's like a youth missions organization. It's evangelical. It's charismatic though. They're like believe in prophecy for today and stuff like that. Anyway, I became a Christian down there. I kind of had a somewhat of a Christian upbringing, but I didn't understand the gospel until I was 20. And then I went down to Northwest Arkansas. I was down there for 4 years. I met my wife to be. We were married. We came back up here, and I live in the Kansas City area. And sadly, I'm divorced. My wife left me about 10 years ago, and I've got 6 kids, ages 33 down to 20, 3 boys, 3 girls. And I am a Reformed Baptist is my denominational affiliation. I enjoy metaphysics. I enjoy thinking about things. I enjoy theology and philosophy. And for most people in our age in which we live right now, the big question is how do things work? But my fascination is why. I want to know why things are. What is the reason for something? And so I love having conversations about ultimate principles. And and I'm a dental lab technician. This is my life. I work alone. And so it affords me the opportunity to be able to interact some on social media and stuff like that. So I'm always trying to invite and engage people in conversation.
Cool.
I don't know what else. So you're Quorac the Bard. Are you a poet, or you like music, or how can we have that label?
That's a great question. I am a musician. I play several instruments and have since I was a kid, and being raised, in a spiritual sense, it was, fruits of the spirit. So I was always encouraged to pursue that, and did as a music maker for God for many years. And as an adult, I'm into gaming and D&D, and the Bard is a very natural fit for me.
Mm-hmm. What instruments do you play?
Piano, tuba, baritone, trumpet, a little bit of guitar, and drums.
Cool. Oh, that's very nice. Okay, great. Okay, so
while we're at it, I mean, on my YouTube channel, I write a lot of music and throw in my own little comedic bits. I used to perform as an adult when I lived in New York for a while. So yeah, I'm all about performance. And now as an atheist, I try to add a little panache to the atheistic arguments.
Okay, excellent, very nice. Okay, so I didn't even really look at the thread that we were introduced on. Is it all right if we just discuss the existence of God?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. And if I may ask, what is there a fulcrum, or can you give a simple answer as to why you left the Christian faith?
Sure. I made a video about this recently, so it's very fresh on my mind. When I left the church, I was hosting my own house church, Priscilla and Aquila style from Book of Acts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was then that I started studying cosmology and anthropology as just kind of a hobby. And the more I studied, the more I thought it got more and more implausible, the idea that a God who created physics and science and math and everything, all of those interactions, could create a 93 billion year, 93 light year, 93 billion light year across universe. And at the same time,
how do you know it's that big?
Those are the prevailing scientific models, the measurements that they've made with the newest, the Webb telescope.
Probably a lot more vast than that.
It's last I read, it was 93 billion light years, something like that. It could be 900. It could be 900 billion light years. Whatever it is, the scientists have measured that. It's very big. And so the more I studied that, the more I thought, so a God made this giant thing, and on one planet in one galaxy, there's one subspecies of primate that is the chosen species, and amongst that species, there's one chosen people. It got more and more implausible the more I consider just the size of the universe and the kind of outside force with an intent that would make something like that have to happen, and at the same time make moral pronouncements. And a lot of the moral pronouncements in the Bible I find questionable at best. We can leave it there for now.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's helpful. All right. So, all right. My argument is that I make for the existence of God it's not an evidence. I'm not a big fan of evidences. Evidences are empirical in nature, and they can only give probability. I prefer proofs because proofs are analytically true by definition. And if you grant the premises, then the conclusion necessarily follows. Okay. And so for my argument for the existence of God, I'm not arguing saying it's more plausible than not that God exists. I'm saying if you value the certain presuppositions that I have as the foundation, I'm not a presuppositionalist. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I'm not that at all. But if you grant my premises for epistemological inquiry, the conclusion that God exists necessarily follows. But when I begin my inquiry, I always ask for my interlocutor with two epistemological tools by which we gain knowledge here in this realm in which we live. And number one is, would you grant me rational coherence or the law of non-contradiction?
Yeah, I presuppose the laws of logic, non-excluded middle, and laws of non-contradiction.
Okay, great. Because if we don't have those, then there's really no way to.
Right, it's a bit of a non-starter, and I've argued with presuppositionalists where we just never get off first base, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, and so I'm not only am I not a presuppositionalist, I think it's a terrible. It pretends to be biblical Christianity. It's really just Enlightenment philosophy. It's Kantian idealism with Christian lipstick on it. It's really bad. But so I'm a classicist. I would argue the way that medieval scholastics would argue, particularly Thomas Aquinas or something. All right, so we've got the law of non-contradiction. The second thing I need you to grant me is the basic reliability of sense perception. Doesn't have to be perfect, just that we have enough sense perception that we can at least have some relationship to this world in which we live. Because you can have any sense perception, and there's nothing with which to unite us with the outside world. So would you grant that as well?
Yeah, in a general sense, we need to rely on our senses, and the way we can confirm what our senses tell us is through peer review, objective verification that is external to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously trusting our own selves when we're doing our own inquiry. We've got to have, at least some, and that's not, again, as you alluded, doesn't mean it's perfect. We're always changing, making mistakes, and revising and stuff like that. But we do have some sense of the reality in which we live. All right. So with those two presuppositions, I'm going to make an argument, and I'm going to say that if something exists, there are only four possibilities. Okay. And I'm going to list these off, and then we'll talk through them one by one, if that's okay. All right. So if something exists, number one is it is an illusion. Number two, it is self-created. Number three, it is self-existent. Number four, it is created by something that is self-existent. Okay. And so those are the only four options. I've been doing this over a decade, and I've not had a person give up. Many people object, and they will say, no, there's a fifth way, and they'll always just basically take another form of one of the other four that are already there. And so the first one is that which exists is an illusion. And what I will rely on for that to say that is not a viable option is that in order to question whether there is existence, I need to first question. And in order to question, I need to think. And in order to think, I must be, and I go to Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And so everything around me could be an illusion. You could be an illusion. This room I'm sitting in could be an illusion. But one thing that I know is that I, the inquirer, exist, because otherwise who is asking the question? Would you agree with that?
I want to clarify, if something is an illusion, is it not by definition something that does not exist?
Yes. And here's the thing I'm thinking about is I debated Matt, Matt Dillahunty is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I debated him a couple months ago, and he just played games the whole time. And
did you
pretended like he didn't know if he existed.
I'm curious, did you call the show, or was it a debate, or is there a link?
No,
I can watch it?
We were on Modern Day Debate. It's on my page. You look on my page. It's on the front page there. Look at Trey Jadlow. Modern Day Debate that we did about 5 months ago or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, Yes. So an illusion, by definition, is not nothing. It's an illusion. So even then, if something exists, one thing that we know is that it's not possible for nothing to exist.
True, but
Actually, even the
not
idea
true
of
that,
nothing.
but by the definition of an
Keep
illusion
talking, I
is
can hear
something
you.
that appears as something, but it isn't actually a thing.
Yes, but you still have the perception of the illusion. Would you agree with that?
Sure, and that's part of the definition: a thing that is likely or to be wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses. So your senses do pick up something, but they're not picking up an actual thing. So an illusion, I'll concede that illusion exists as a concept, certainly.
Well, so the argument is that if everything is an illusion, at least you, the inquirer, are not an illusion. You actually do exist because you're asking the question. Would you grant that? It doesn't really matter about anything else.
This gets into a philosophy that's not really in my wheelhouse. So I'll take a pass and we can move on to the next one.
Okay. Well, I've not had anybody really question that.
But I would like to ask some clarifying questions about your next two, like self-created. As far as I know, nothing is self-created.
Why?
Well, like for me, I came from my parents came from so on and so forth. And as far as we can tell, the universe is entirely populated by natural phenomena going back to as far back as we can see, which is the Big Bang. What happened before that, we don't know. So it could be that the universe is self-created. Nobody knows. I don't think anyone has presented a good answer to that. But apart from that, I don't have anything to go on when it comes to evidence for something that you can point to and say that is self-created.
Well, I would even go farther than that. I would say not only do we not see such a thing in this universe in which we live, it's not possible. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this is why I asked for the law of non-contradiction. In order for something to create itself, it would need to exist before it needs to predate itself in existence before it is. Would you agree with that? That's what I was going at when I said why.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that particularly, but I agree that something I don't know of anything that can self-create that didn't exist before it came to be. Like it was.
Well, it would need to be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
So what do you now mean by self-existent?
Okay, if that which exists, and we're talking about ourselves because we're the inquirer here, is self-existent, would you say that you are self-existent?
I'm not sure what that means.
Dependent. I mean, well, do you depend upon other things in order to exist?
In order to live, I need to eat and breathe. Yes.
So you're not self-existent. You are contingent in your existence or dependent in your existence.
I am dependent in my existence as most things. Well, I don't even know if it's most things, but I see a lot of things that are dependent, plants, animals, and the like.
Right. Okay. So that which exists is not an illusion. It's not self-created. It's not self-existent. Therefore, the only option that's left is it is created by something that is self-existent.
Well, the problem with that is that we've just decided that nothing is self-existent.
No, you can't. Let's imagine this. Imagine the entire universe is this one big circle. Everything that exists, the cosmos, everything that exists is in this let's say event circle here.
Mm-hmm.
If everything in that circle is contingent or dependent, then it is dependent independently, which is a violation of law of identity. It cannot be dependent and independent at the same time.
Well, we're not suggesting that the universe self-created.
So, I'm sorry?
Are you suggesting, or I'm not asserting that the universe self-created.
No. Yeah, well, you can't. I am asserting that's why it doesn't matter. You can't have an infinite regress of effects without causes. In other words, if something starts out, anything that changes is contingent by definition. It's an effect. Okay, you cannot have an effect without a cause. The principle of causality is analytically true. It's kind of like saying a triangle has three sides, or a bachelor is an unmarried man.
I see where you're going with this, and I understand, and and I know I'm glad you said you're not a presuppositionalist, because this is in line with kind of where they head with it. If the universe, can't self-create, then the creator had to have come from outside, which kind of tracks, because on the inside of the universe, nothing can self-create. So it had to come from somewhere. And normally you can point at the thing that created the other thing. That's why it's tricky about talking about the origin of the universe, because we can see back to Planck time and not any further than that. So the question becomes, did the universe come out of nothing? Did it go through an expansion and a collapse? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, you said, did it come out of nothing? Again, that's option 2.
Right. Well, when we're talking about the origin of the universe, and then this is where science is like, we're trying to answer this, and theists say they have an answer because they've got a holy book to point to.
No, I'm not relying on the Bible at all here.
Okay. No, I
all I've asked for is sense perception and a law of non-contradiction, or laws of thought.
Right. So,
and I'm not giving you evidence. This is an analytical proof. In other words, if you're going to be reasonable, you cannot deny the principle of causality.
Right. Well, I can't deny that it's a head scratcher where the universe came from, and it does make.
Well, it's not a head scratcher. It's quite obvious.
Well, you're saying it's obvious because there has to be a creator.
Right.
So
logically speaking, if we're going to be logical.
Well, which then begs the question: where did your creator come from if nothing can form?
What nobody's ever said that God was self-creating. Saying he's self-existent. There's no logical law that is violated by God being self. Okay, here's the thing. What you're doing is, this happens all the time. People misunderstand the principle of causality. Bertrand Russell did this his entire life. He completely misunderstood the principle of causality. Causality doesn't say that everything needs a cause. It says every effect must have a cause. And there's a world of difference in that. Russell said, yeah, if everything needs a cause, then what caused God? And that's not what the argument is. It says that dependent being cannot instantiate independently.
So your claim then is that there's a God that exists who, through a force of will or whatever you want to call it, made the universe with an intent. That's your claim?
Well, I would say that intentionality does instantiate or exist in the universe. Would you agree with that?
Intent, I'm sorry, does or does not exist?
Is there such a thing as intentionality or purpose in this universe?
One could see evidence of that, certainly, yeah.
Well, we're intending to have this conversation, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I intend to speak right now, and so I am speaking.
Okay, so the principle of proportionate causality says something cannot cause something else what it itself does not have. And I always use the example, I cannot impart the ability to fly to my children because I do not have that capacity. Right? So if there's such a thing as intentionality in the universe, there must be something that is eternally intentional or teleological. And teleology is something that minds and persons can do. Would you agree with that?
I don't think it follows that it has to be eternal necessarily, because you could be talking about a God or an entity that creates a universe and then die. I mean, when you talk about creating a universe as an act, I picture a Rick Sanchez with a lobster tank and a tesseract field. He made a universe and it's sitting in his lab. Rick Sanchez can die, or he can leave and never come back. And that universe will still be there. So when I think of like a creator, especially one who knows the laws of physics and how to assemble those, I picture a scientist and not a robed bearded guy.
Oh, that's fine. Well, it doesn't matter what he looks like. So you would agree, though, whatever that scientist is, he would have to be, or it would have to be, unchanging. It can't be an effect. Because you can't have an infinite regress of effects without causes.
Yeah, but if you've got a guy making a universe in a lab, that guy can cease to exist. It doesn't have to be an eternal guy making a universe in a lab.
Okay, where did the guy come from, and where did the stuff come from?
Well, where did God come from exactly? So I'm
not making a case that God came into existence.
Well, is that not the role of the theist to make a case for God creating the universe?
Well, it's to defend the perspective of God, but I'm not creating him. I'm a dependent being. I cannot create an eternal being because I had a beginning.
You can create the concept of an eternal being. I'm not saying you actually created God, but certainly you can think of an eternal being and
Oh,
see it as
absolutely. I mean, I can conceive this flying spaghetti monster, but that doesn't necessarily make it true.
Exactly. So we're at the same point now, where the flying spaghetti monster, Allah, Yahweh, they're all in the great unknown, and I've seen no evidence for any of them. I do see evidence for a universe that reacts with natural phenomena. As to where that natural phenomena came from, because the universe is full of natural phenomena, some of which we can measure, some of which we can't, I assume that it probably came from natural phenomena that we haven't discovered yet. I do not assume that someone magicked it or labbed it or created it into existence as an act of will, magic, force, miracles, or whatever you want to call it.
So it just made itself.
I didn't say that either. I said scientists are looking into it. It's entirely possible that the universe expands and contracts and is eternal. It's possible that it came from nothing, and the nothing we don't understand what its values or properties are, what existed before.
Wait a minute, Quorac, nothing is not a thing.
Exactly. So what exists
So
beyond
if
the
something
universe
exists, there never was a time when there was absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and we don't know how to measure that. So instead of,
well, sure we do. We know what is reasonable.
Yeah, and it's not, I think, reasonable to trust that ancient goat herders with a penchant for foreskins knew how the creation of the universe came to be.
Well, we're not talking about ancient goat herders with a penchant.
Well, we're talking about theism versus atheism, and presumably as a Christian, you've heard about how God has a thing for foreskins.
I do, and he has a thing for many other signs as well. But that is not violating a law of a thought. Foreskins don't violate any of Aristotle's laws or any empirical laws.
I'm not saying they violate any laws.
The fact that you don't like it does nothing to whether it's true or not.
No, exactly. And I'm saying that I don't think it's reasonable to look at how the universe was created and then point to the Bible and say, aha, we know, yes, God did it, and here are his commands. It doesn't jive.
Okay, when I'm giving an argument for the Bible, I'm giving an argument for evidence, okay? But when I'm giving an argument for the existence of God, I'm giving an argument from proof that cannot be refuted. Proof, and it's not something that's like we can't know it. We absolutely can know it. I can know it more than I know that you exist, even.
So
because I know that I didn't make myself.
Apart from the proof and the agreement that we're sharing a reality, what proof do you have that the universe came about from a creator? And I'm not talking about argue your way into, the non-existent argument. I get where you're going with that, but that does not equal evidence. It's an argument.
No, it's not evidence. It's stronger than evidence. It's a proof.
It's an argument.
Do you agree that self-creation is irrational?
Self-creation is, as far as I know, yeah.
Okay. Because it violates the law of non-contradiction, and you've already granted me the law of non-contradiction.
And I'm not arguing the universe self-created. You're arguing a self-created being created the universe.
Self-existent being. There's no law of logic that I'm violating. In fact, it's the only thing that makes sense.
All right, let's say I agree. I'm not a philosopher, so let's say I agree that you're not violating the laws of logic. That I still don't see evidence for a creation. I see natural phenomena reacting the way that natural phenomenon does.
You've already conceded that you're a creation.
I am the product of two consensual adult mating.
Yeah, you were created.
I was, okay, if you want to call it that. I am the product
of creation necessitates a creator via causality.
Which brings us all the way back from the beginning of the universe to your creator. And where did your creator come from? Because the first thing you asked when I said it was Rick Sanchez, you said, where'd Rick Sanchez come from?
But this is the whole thing. We're not, if you were to say that God came from somewhere, then you've just multiplied the problem. You haven't solved it.
Exactly. So by introducing a God into
I'm not
the
doing
equation,
that. You're doing that.
I'm not asserting, if you're a theist, I'm assuming that you're asserting that a God exists. Is that not your position?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
If I'm the atheist in the atheism versus theism debate, I'm assuming that you're asserting that a God exists, or is that not your position?
Yes, that's what I'm arguing for.
Okay, so we're not going to agree on whether God exists or is self-created or defies the laws of logic or wherever you're going with this. But what we can do is look at the holy book that you promote as a Christian and say, well, does that line up with reality? Because that would be some kind of evidence that, yeah, God knew what he was talking about when he said to the ancient Aramaic or whoever he was talking to, hey, you should do this because scientifically it lines up with reality.
Okay, so would you agree that you do not have a rebuttal for a creator? When I say that God creates
It's
the
the
universe.
problem of hard solipsism, man. Nobody has an answer for it.
No, it doesn't. I said that earlier. It said solipsism is not a problem with me. All I need is the inquirer. All I need is you or me who's asking the question. You know that you are not self-existent, and you know that you could not have made yourself before you existed, right?
I agree with those statements. Yeah.
Okay, so solipsism doesn't really matter. It's still my argument still holds.
Well, it's an argument, and I'd like to see evidence for the argument. If you're, if you could just
you are the evidence for that, my friend.
Oh, look at the trees. Okay, that's classic.
No, look at you. You, the inquirer, did not make yourself. Okay, and you're not self-existent.
Yeah, and so God did
something that is self-existent. Call it Sally Struthers. I was like,
but you say you're not violating the laws of logic, and yet you're making a special pleading for God because nothing is self-existent, nothing is self-created except for God.
Therefore, there must be something that is self-existent. That's not special pleading. That's a rational argument. It's a
all right. Look, we're not going to agree on that. So, if you want to make a case for the Bible because it holds up to religious, or I'm sorry, scientific scrutiny, go ahead. But the origins of the universe is something that's being studied by scientists, and it will be science that figures out that puzzle, not revelation or prayer.
Well, no, I would say that logic supersedes empiricism. Would you agree with that?
I don't know enough about empiricism to make
well, empiricism is just using your senses to gain. That's what science is. Science is just empiricism.
I got to tell you, I'm terrible at terms. I really am.
No, that's fine. No problem. So you'll say some things I don't know either. That's fine. So, but the thing is you've got to have the laws of logic to interpret the empirical data that you have. That's what science is. In other words, some people say that science is just the art of taxonomy. In other words, you're just classifying stuff as you engage it and watch how it interacts in causal relationships. And so you're using that. But in order to do that, you've got to have the laws of logic. You've got to have rational coherence, because if you don't have that, you don't have propositions that don't make any sense.
Well, I agree. We need the laws of logic, and it is necessarily circular to prove the laws of logic. You got to use logic. I'll agree with that because
but that's not circular. That when you say I assume the laws of logic, this is what the precepts do. They like to you're using a presuppositional argument, which they're wrong in. The laws of logic do not have any content. They are instrumental in nature. Okay. So when I say that, say, for example, the flying spaghetti monster is the ultimate reality of the universe, and you say, how do you know that? You say, well, I presuppose it. That is violating begging the informal fallacy of begging the question, okay? Because you can't assume the very thing you're arguing for. But when I say that I assume the laws of logic, I am assuming the very instrument for testing logical assertions or testing propositional assertions for validity. So it's different. That's an instrument. The laws of logic are an instrument. It's not the material proposition itself. So
the way I put it is just it's necessarily circular because you need to use logic to prove logic exists or works. But the proof is in the pudding, and that's the difference between logic and presupposing religious figures. Is you can show that they work. You know, and if they weren't reliable and they didn't provide reliable results, I wouldn't use them. But it's the nature of just having a mind and coming up with logic and forming these kinds of concepts that leads us to it, and it becomes necessarily circular. But where I'm going with this is I think we should just leave the origins of the universe where they lie, and if you could switch from an argument that God must necessarily, you know what, I'll grant you that your God must necessarily exist if it gets us to proving that the Bible is true, if you want to go with that route.
Okay. All right. So then the second plank for this is not for God's existence as a creator, but that there is such a thing as a moral law. So usually what I do is I like to argue first from Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 2, because those are the two arguments that are, it's called natural theology, a natural revelation. God reveals himself in nature. And when you argue those two arguments, historically, theology has always placed those two in the area of philosophy, because there's no salvation that you can get through that. But it does, they are proofs and not evidences, and they're available to everyone. There's nobody that doesn't know that there's not a moral law, and there's nobody that does not know that they have a creator. Okay, that's my assertion, and I believe that's what Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 2 are teaching. And
So you're asserting, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. You're asserting that I know there's a God.
Yes, if you're being reasonable. You have not refuted me yet.
Okay.
You even conceded the argument, remember?
I conceded that. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll concede that. Hang on. I'll concede there's a God. So this universe was created by something with intent. Now, was that intent accurately represented by the Bible? And you went to morals. So I would like to pose a moral question. Is it moral to purchase your rape victim for 50 shekels?
Okay. Can we would you agree then that there is a moral standard, because you're saying that the Bible is immoral because you can buy a female slave?
Well, if you would just answer the question first, and then we can get to your question. Is it moral to purchase your rape victim for 50 shekels?
Well, no, I do not think that you can buy someone to rape unless you can.
No. The way it works in the Bible in Deuteronomy 22 is if a man rapes a woman and she's not betrothed, he can purchase her for 50 shekels and marry her. And in fact, he
has to pay a dowry.
He's commanded to do so. So he pays 50 shekels and he marries her.
Why do you suppose he has to do that?
I don't really care about the wherefores and whys. I'm asking if
that's everything.
That is moral.
That's the whole point.
Is it moral? Like if I describe a situation where I walk behind somebody and shoot them in the back in cold blood, and I ask you if that's moral, and you go, wait a minute, what was the motivation? No, it was cold blood. Okay, so in this situation, you've got a rapist who finds a young virgin who's not prepared to be married, rapes her, pays her father 50 shekels, and marries her. Is that moral?
Yes. It is.
Okay, this is my problem with theism, because
wait a minute.
You will call something like that moral, and I think that's an abomination. But go ahead with your rebuttal.
Go ahead. Why?
Oh, why? Why do I think it's an abomination?
We're skipping over my second argument. Well, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Why is it immoral for a rapist, a man who rapes a woman, to pay a dowry and be required to marry her, unless the father objects?
Because I'm a secular humanist. I have a whole explanation. I need at least a paragraph or two. Just give me a second.
No, please. Yeah.
As a secular humanist, I weigh, does something promote wellness or does it cause harm? Rape is harmful. It goes against a person's bodily autonomy. It's a violation of their bodily autonomy. It can cause medical problems. It causes all kinds of problems. I don't think, well, I'd like to hope that there's nobody who would argue against the idea that rape is harmful. So in my estimation, rape is harmful. So the rapist should be punished. And that is the moral thing to do. When you have the Bible, you have a command to purchase your rape victim and marry them. And you just said that that was a moral thing. I'm assuming it's because that your God is an objective moral giver. And that's the problem with trusting objective moral givers from ancient holy books. It doesn't allow for actual morality when you use the metric of wellness versus harm. Very simple, very basic metric. Did it help somebody or did it hurt somebody?
Okay, so you said that you judge your moral standard by, that is kind of like Sam Harris's moral landscape. You judge morality. He said science can basically give us moral code by just observing that which causes the maximum benefit and the least amount of harm. When you say that the goal in life is to sanctify existence, is it really true? Is existence really special?
In the grand scheme of things, no. We put that is something we put value on because we are the ones living.
So it
Life
doesn't
wants to
matter.
live.
So there's no difference between Hitler and you being against rape. It's just a different preference.
If Hitler was against rape, then okay, that's one for
No,
Hitler.
if Hitler was for raping Jews, let's say,
Okay,
he's no worse than you, right?
he's no worse than me. Well, on the scale of the universe, no, we're a tiny speck in the universe. But on planet Earth, where things are happening in our lives, we put value on those things.
Why?
And
Where does that purpose come from?
well, because if
This
you
is what I
don't
was trying to
value
go through.
life, what happens if you don't value your life? What happens to you?
You die.
Exactly. Do we want to die?
So
People who want to die usually find a way to make that happen. But in general, life wants to live. Life wants to remain alive. And if that's the case, and we agree to that subjectively, and we agree subjectively that wellness is better than harm, then we can make objective determinations like rape is bad because it causes harm.
right. So would you agree then that if somebody does not value existence, let's use the extreme example of an axe murderer, that there's something wrong with them?
Well, according to our moral standard that we have agreed on, yes.
Okay. Now, would you agree that we are determined as humans, because you're saying that they're broken, that we are determined to value existence?
I don't know about determined. Humans tend to value existence.
If somebody is suicidal, are they well?
Well,
what do you do if your best friend is being suicidal? What do you do?
There's a lot of factors to that. It's a very good question. If my friend,
well, what's your initial instinct?
Well, it depends on a few things. If my friend had terminal cancer, that would be different.
They're healthy.
Oh, they're healthy.
They're just depressed because their girlfriend left them.
Oh, well, then I take him out for a beer and try to show him a good time and shake off his depression.
Right. You say, I can help you. It's not as bad as you think. Let me help you to get out of this funk, if you will, in your mind, because there's something wrong with the way you're thinking.
Not that there's something wrong with the way you're thinking. Feeling sad over a breakup is a totally normal response. And so,
but to kill yourself because of it is not.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. So we are determined to value existence. It's a human nature.
We value existence. I don't know that we're determined to value existence, but
well, you didn't create value as an objective reality.
No, I imbued value. If I value a friendship, that's because of the value that I put on it. It doesn't have any inherent value to anything.
And you are determined to value existence, just like you're determined to eat. You are determined to.
I'm not determined to do shit. I could starve just as easily as I could eat. I'm not determined to do anything. I need it.
Then why don't you?
Because life wants to live.
Why do you get up? Yes, why? That's right. So there's teleology in the universe. This is what I was going at in the earlier portion.
So can you give me a roadmap here on how that proves that your God exists? Because here's the problem I have, and it's going to be a bit of a sticking point for me. You just disagreed with me when I said that rape is immoral, but under the auspices of your Bible.
No, I didn't say rape was immoral.
No, I'm not putting. Hang on, let me finish. I know what you said, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Okay. You didn't say rape was moral. You said under the auspices of the Bible, in this situation, if you pay 50 shekels for your rape victim and marry them, you said that was moral. And I heartily disagree with that. I think it can be easily proven why that is an immoral act if you and I agree that wellness is preferable to harm. Do we agree on that premise?
No, because do you know why he was required?
Okay, let me just be clear. We don't agree that wellness is preferable to harm.
No, we do. No, we do agree with that. But whether the man who rapes the woman, taking her, whether you're saying that's harmful, and I'm saying it's wellness.
So if a man rapes a woman, that is not harmful.
It is harmful, and it's wrong.
So how did you say it's wellness?
If a woman in ancient culture, if a woman is raped, how many men are going to want to marry her?
So you're saying in certain circumstances and at certain times, it's actually good to rape a woman.
No, no, I'm saying that
You just
in,
said it
in
was
that
wellness. If it's wellness over harm, then that's
nobody commanded the man to rape the woman. Okay, I don't know where you're
no
getting
one
at.
needs to be commanded to do anything. If he did it,
Well, sure they do.
you're
You're
saying that
commanded
in
not
that
to.
time, in that day and age, that was actually a good thing.
No, no, no.
It's not. Okay,
I'm saying
well, we agree on that.
the remedy for a man raping a woman is for him to care for her and to love her as his wife.
And that's fucking abominable. You think that's good?
Why are you so upset?
I'm not. My emotional state has nothing to do with this conversation.
Well, it has everything to do with it because you're
No,
not living
if
consistently, my friend.
you just said that, yeah, in a certain date at a certain time with a certain culture, rape is preferable because if you can't
No, I
get
didn't
married,
say that at all. I've never
all right,
said
tell
that.
me what you're saying. Jesus Christ.
Rape is I support the death penalty for rape. Okay.
So why at a certain place and a certain time are you did say it was wellness rather than harm in this circumstance, did you not?
That's right. I did.
So how
after the rape has occurred, not to tell someone
after the rape has occurred, after this woman has suffered a violation from, let's say, a stranger or a family member, who the fuck knows, she's stuck with him for life, and you think that is preferable?
Rather than be completely alone without children, because children was everything to that culture. Yes.
So, okay, under your theism, you're
and
saying
he's got to love her as his wife, and
certain day, time, and culture where not rape is bad. Okay, we agree, rape is bad. But if you get raped, you might as well marry the guy. That's where you're going from.
Yeah, or else be a childless widow or
Holy
a childless maid for the rest of your life.
Well,
and have nobody will marry you.
I just made the case for secular humanism over theism, and I thank you for helping me. Now, I'm done, but we can take this conversation wherever you like it from here.
Okay, well, I like to go through the secular humanism for the reason that you think that existence is objectively valuable when you say, at the other hand, it doesn't matter.
I never said existence is objectively valuable. We put value
that on woman who was raped was objectively valuable. Do you agree with that?
We put value on human life, and as a secular human life, as a secular humanist, I don't want other human lives to be harmed.
Right, because their lives matter.
I have decided that they matter.
Yeah, you decided because you're determined with that. And if you don't determine that, there's something wrong.
No, I'm not determined. I made a decision.
Right. Where did that decision come from? This is what I'm saying.
My brain.
Teleology does not. Let me ask you this, Quorac. Do you believe that rocks can create philosophical societies?
I don't believe that.
No, because again, this is called the principle of proportionate causality. You cannot have something instantiating from something that does not have the capacity to do the thing that it's imparting to something else.
Yeah.
So you think that the valuable life that somehow that you just made it up out of nothing, and you're not determined to value existence. Yet, if somebody does not value existence and they harm other people, you think that you have the right to impose your views upon them because they are breaking some kind of standard that doesn't sanctify existence.
I never said I have my right to impose it. I mean, that's a little bit of projection coming from a theist. You're the ones telling us how to live. You're the ones telling us that if you get raped, you need to marry the fucking guy who raped you.
I'm not. No, Quorac, I'm not.
I know you're not saying it. You're supporting the Bible that says it. So you can hide behind the Bible. I mean, that's fine, but I still think it's just goddamn horrible.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I've had similar conversations with people who do the same backflips over slavery and other like human rights violations where it's
human rights. Tell me about human rights.
Yeah, we as a society have agreed that rape is wrong and you shouldn't have to marry. We have decided that because it violates your bodily autonomy, and you certainly shouldn't be forced to marry your rapist. We have as a society have decided that, and we've said to hell with your theology because it's fucking barbaric.
Because barbarism doesn't value existence, right?
Yeah, and barbarism is aplenty found in the Bible. Okay. So if you're holding that up as your moral standard, you're falling far fucking short from just basic societal standards, not just secular humanism.
But I want you to justify societal standards for the sanctity of existence.
No one said, I didn't say there was a sanctity of existence. I said we imbue value on it. It doesn't have an inherent value. We place value on it, so much value that we as a society want to protect life against people who would take it. And that is not from on high. It's not a divine proclamation. We didn't need to follow your book because the objectively moral things in your book are fucking abominable.
But life doesn't matter, right?
Objectively, in the scope of the universe, no. Like I just said 1,000 times,
why do you act like
value
it does
on
so
it.
much? But why do you act like it does so much?
Like what does so much?
Why are you so nervous about women getting raped if it doesn't really matter?
Because as a human, I'm a secular humanist, and I don't want to see harm come to my fellow humans. Even though on the scale of a universe, we don't really matter. We are just a speck of dust on a mud ball floating through space. But on this mud ball, I'd prefer it not be a complete fucking shit show. Is that so hard to get?
You cannot live consistently with what you say is true. That's the problem.
It's true that I don't want to live on a shithole, and I don't need to rely on an ancient book to tell me that rape is okay. Let me amend that. Rape isn't okay. Marrying your rapist is the only fucking course for it.
Well, it's not the only course. It was at that time. Right now, it's not. It's a different.
Yeah, and this is the same God who slavery apologists will say, well, at the time, you know, God was trying to like work he had to work it out with slavery, but he couldn't just say no slavery, but he could say no shellfish.
You are conflating so many categories there. What's that noise?
Oh, that's just my hobby. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so Quorac, I always like to tease my secular humanist friends. I think secular humanism is probably one of the most stupid ideologies. You know why it took so long for atheists to catch on is because nobody thought it was stupid enough. Because you cannot have purpose being special for no reason. In other words,
here's the problem. You just conflated atheism with secular humanism. Are we talking about secular humanism or atheism? Because atheism is the answer to a single question. Do you believe in a God? No, I don't. I'm an atheist.
But secular humanism is always atheistic, right?
Not necessarily. You can be a secular humanist who believes in God.
Really?
You can't? You can't picture a person who wants humanity to thrive and, like me, as a minister 30 years ago, would read the Bible and say, oh, let me make concessions for this because I believe in God, but I really don't want to follow this rape shit or this slavery shit. But God's, you know, a moral, you know, objective guide, and I need to follow on to that. So it's really easy for me to at least picture someone who could make exceptions for God's abominations and believe in him and be a secular humanist who wants humanity to thrive.
Okay, Quorac, secular humanism by definition is naturalistic. Look it up.
I get that. And people have walking contradictions all the time. Like I
know. Some of us a little more than others.
Right. So continue. What was was there a question on the table?
No, I'm just trying to get you to understand that your valuing existence does not happen by accident. You are determined to value existence. You may not like that.
I didn't say it was an accident, and I don't agree that it was determined. It's part of having a mind and being a social creature and having empathy. You can see that in chimpanzees. Are chimpanzees imbued with something that we have or don't have? Because they also, and so do other social creatures. You can see empathy. You can see that they have a desire for fairness. And that's not determined. It's part of being a social creature and surviving with your kind.
That's right. Survival is the goal, right?
If we agree that is, but we were having a hard time getting on that base earlier.
You just told me it's universal that survival is the goal.
I've always said life wants to live.
Monkeys are not agreeing that survival is the goal. Do you agree with that?
They're not agreeing the way we are.
They're determined to value existence, right?
They're not agreeing the way we are having an argument about it, but
they are determined to value existence, right?
They help each other because they see the value in helping each other.
Right. They're determined to do that, right?
And the answer's still going to be no, man.
Oh, come on, man. Come on.
I don't agree that we're determined. All right, we can agree to disagree on this point if you want to move on, but I don't think we're determined to do it. I think as social creatures, we see what's right and wrong, and we make those determinations, and we imbue value on what we value, and we tend to value human life. We built whole societies around human life.
That's exactly right. We are determined to value life.
And no, we're not. It's just a result of being a social creature. Okay. Anyway, let's move on from determinism, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, so We know that we have a creator. We know that there is a moral law, which is centered around the sanctity of existence. You're arguing that with me now. You're saying I don't sanctify existence well enough. And you cannot have a moral law without a moral law giver, because it doesn't instantiate unintentionally. Moral law is always intentional. It's always done by a person and a mind.
Yeah, and I don't, okay.
And those are analytical arguments. I'm not saying giving them as evidences. I'm saying those are proofs. Those are one thing. When you stand before God and you are judged before him, you're not going to be judged for not trusting in Jesus. You're going to be judged for suppressing the knowledge of the one who gives you every good gift, not giving thanks to him, and suppressing the knowledge of his moral law that he has written on your heart.
I could use that same exact argument for Odin. All right, Odin has written it on your
That's
heart.
fine.
You know that he's the
At this point, fine.
You will face him.
Call it Odin.
So if you don't, you know, follow that,
so do you believe in Odin?
The truth. No, you believe.
Do you believe in Odin?
I don't believe in Odin. You believe in Odin.
I adequately demonstrated a self-existent moral lawgiver?
I don't agree that that's what happened here. But I'll tell you what, I really enjoy talking to you. You're an honest interlocutor. I enjoyed this, and I think maybe next time we should schedule something and come up with like an actual subject, and you know, we can still keep it loosey goosey. I like conversing with you, but you know, let's hang in the future. I enjoyed talking to you.
Okay, sounds good. I need to. Yeah, I like to keep these around an hour anyway, so we'll go ahead and close this out.
Is that what we've been? How long have we been talking?
Well, I think we started around 6. I'm not sure though. I mean, well, my time. Yeah, I think it was 6 my time. So.
Well, it's been fun, man. I do got to run, but yeah, I'll follow you. Follow me on Twitter. Come to my YouTube channel. I'll send you links, and yeah, let's continue chatting.
Right.
It's been fun.
Thanks, Quorac. You're a wonderful interlocutor. You're kind, honest, and I appreciate the argument. But you didn't talk. Sometimes people just filibuster with words. You don't do that at all. You say, Trey, give me your point, and then you listen and you rebut. So thank you for that. I enjoyed the conversation.
Right, just basic competence. Can you hold a conversation? And yeah, we're both older guys, so it's like, oh, thank God. Yeah, we can disagree all day long, but just talk to me. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, don't get that too often. Thanks, Quorac. We'll talk to you. Okay.
All right, take her easy.
All right, we'll see you, man.